I like to go back to the vision. Like, what is your vision? Because a lot of times when people get to a place where they're stagnant, they're plateauing, maybe you hit a certain level of success, you're not growing, or you're just not doing the things you know you need to do. You're not doing it. You're probably good at like coming up with excuses. Well, I've got this and this and this and blah, 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 blah. Your bank account doesn't care about that. It's only going to care like what you're showing up and doing.
Brant Phillips, real estate investor, entrepreneur, business coach, and best-selling author. He started investing while living in an apartment, and since then he's flipped over 400 houses and owned over 100 rentals. His real estate experience spans house flipping, mobile home parks, construction, and land development. His company, Invest Home Pro, has been recognized by Inc. 5000 as one of America's fastest growing private companies. Welcome to the show, Brant.
Thank you, Chris.
That's why I wanted you out here, because I hear a lot. I know you hear this a lot too, where folks they want to, whether it's from a YouTube video, they're watching HGTV, something like that, or going to networking events, and they hear about real estate investing. They want to get started in investing, but they're like, I don't have any cash, and I definitely don't have any experience, so I really don't even know how I could do it. But you got started with, I mean, we all had no experience before we get started, right? And you've talked about how you didn't have any cash when you got started. How'd you do that? How'd you get your first deal?
Yeah, I love when people throw that at me as an excuse. Well, I don't have any money. I don't know where to start. And I mean, that is the reason I got into real estate. Because whenever, I was broke and didn't know what to do, I was at a bookstore and I saw these real estate books about how to do real estate, with no money down or no cash out of pocket. And I was like, sign me up. Like these guys talking my language here. So some people out there, like their biggest excuse was the biggest culprit, that the biggest thing that led me into getting started in real estate. Because as we both know, like real estate is incredibly creative and most other businesses are not, they take a lot of cash and capital. So I just went off that premise of seeing a couple of books, and to be honest, I didn't even read those books in the beginning. I read some other books and went to like a boot camp kind of thing. And I just said, I'm going to go figure this out. A little bit of education, a little information, just I went after it. But that is, I think, probably the biggest excuse that people have for not getting real estate is no money. And it is literally like these, if you have all the obstacles of being successful in real estate, most people, they paint this picture of this big giant obstacle of no money, and it's literally like a rock. You just step over it. It's literally a pebble, but people paint the picture of it's a mountain, and it's not. There's other things in real estate that are very difficult, that are challenging. It's not the money part of it. It's the easiest part of this whole thing.
Yeah, it's like fear's a mile wide, an inch deep, and I got started for the same reason. I was in college. I didn't have a job, so I was like every other college kid. I was broke. I was thinking like, hey, yeah, I can't invest. How am I going to invest? And I even had like loan officers telling me, sorry, we can't give you a loan to buy a rental property. I don't care if your tenants pay you rent or not. You don't have a job. We're not giving you any money. And I'm like, I didn't realize there's this whole other thing out there and whole other way to finance real estate investment properties. So yeah, it really opened my eyes. What when you ended up getting your first deal, how did you finance it? But what lessons? Because going into your first deal, pretty excited, right?
Mhm.
Pretty excited. You've got this vision on what's going to happen. You're going to be the next guru, and then you learn the things you didn't know. How'd you finance it? But more importantly, what lessons did you learn the hard way in that first deal?
Man, so the very first deal that I did, so just take a quick step back, was, I read some books, Rich Dad Poor Dad being one. I think I may have jumped ahead on the question, and I started reading some Tony Robbins stuff, and I'd never read personal development stuff before, and Stephen Covey. I started reading this personal development stuff about goal setting and vision setting, and literally, like, so I'm in my early 30s. I had really, I'm a little bit ashamed to say, but I'm just honest. Like, I had really never like set really any goals for my life. It was just like, get a job, pay the bills, have a family. And as I go, bleep, this is terrible. So I got into some of the personal development kind of stuff, and then with Little Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and that was like what fueled me. Okay, so that was fast forward towards the end of the year. So January, this was January 2007. To give you guys some context, for some of you, yes, I'm old. I'm 50, um, getting there. So hush. And so this is 2007, and I go to this boot camp the first weekend of the month, and it was a boot camp on how to buy rental properties. And they talked about working with wholesalers or agents to go find deals. Deals were very easy to find back then, and so was financing. So I left that boot camp, uh, found a wholesaler very, very quickly, and he brought me 3 deals, like, within the same week or a couple of days, whatever it was. I looked at all 3, I liked one, and I put a contract on it. And I did not have any money. And I'm like, "How are you gonna finance this? I don't know." They told me at the boot camp it was easy to do. So I called a hard money lender, and at the same time, I had good credit. I always had good credit. I always paid my bills. So back then, I don't know if they do this anymore, but they used to mail out those checks where you could write a credit card check. And literally take a further step back, my wife and I had just went through this Dave Ramsey thing. We paid off our credit cards, our student loan to be debt free and all that because we were really financially illiterate. So we had just done that, just finished that up that previous year. So then I wrote that check for $7,000 to buy the home. That's what it was going to take me out of pocket. And so long story short, like, I got financing from a hard money lender, and we closed on that property that same month. So I went to the boot camp, found a lender, got a deal, closed on it that same month. And I think the question was like, what did I learn from it? And I hired a general contractor, just like I was taught to do. I didn't try to do everything myself. I didn't know, I knew nothing about construction, like nothing. And it went really well. It was actually very, very easy. And I got a tenant in there before my first hard money payment was due. And I was kind of like sweating it. I'm like, man, if this thing doesn't rent out, like, how many months till I'm like out of business? But I didn't have anything to lose. So I didn't, honestly, I didn't care. And got a tenant right in it. She paid on time. She stayed there for 7 years. So to be honest, like, my first deal was really, really easy. It got a little more difficult after that because I started screwing some things up myself and doing some things on my own. And it got a little ugly after that, a little bit at times. But the first deal went really, really well. Just to be honest, it did. Now we jumped to deal 3, and there's a lot better
this one right here?
There's a lot better stories than that. No, so those 2 deals, those are my first flip deal. You want to talk about my first flip deal? That's a different story. I'm sorry.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, so my first deal was a rental, and there's a lesson in that too. We'll share with everybody. And this is really big, guys, because I see a lot of people that are like chomping the bit, like they want to, like, for example, to go flip houses. And that's honestly what I wanted to do. I was watching these how to flip a house shows, Armando Montalongo, all these guys, these shows were like just catching fire. And that's what I wanted to do. But here's the thing, like, you have to learn to take what the market's giving you. I've seen some people, this year, even some people I'm working with, like, coming in, they want to flip houses. I'm not saying you can't flip houses, but it's a much more challenging market to flip houses in today's market than it was 3, 4, 5 years ago. It's a whole different thing. So everything's cyclical. So if you want to flip houses, that's great. There's different ways you have to do it. You have to do it much more cautiously, but you may look to see what the opportunities that are here for today. So in 2007, what I was taught was what the market was giving was to buy rentals. So I'm like, didn't really want to do that, but I was taking advice and information with someone who was in a much better place than me. And I'm like, I'm just going to trust them and I'm going to execute this and see what happens. It's test the results, right? So I did that. And so a couple years into doing this thing of buying rentals, I had like 20 so rentals. And then I'm like, man, I really want to flip a house. And wasn't that the market was ripe for that. It was just like, I wanted to do it. My ego is probably getting a little bit big. And if you go back a slide to that first house y'all saw, that was the first house that I flipped, and it went horribly wrong. horribly wrong because I went into a kind of with a big ego. I got this. I've done all these rentals. I didn't have a clear plan. I didn't have a clear vision. I was just, you know, just boldly optimistic about, getting financing. It wasn't in every mistake in the book I made, and it went wrong. I lost money on it, and it wasn't even a lot of money. But back then, to me, any money with losing was a lot of money, and it kind of crushed my spirit a little bit. Because I was very like I wanted to flip houses. Like I wanted to flip houses, make big paydays, all that kind of stuff. I wasn't like at that point in time, I'm like, I wasn't looking to create long-term wealth. I wanted to have a good lifestyle, quit my job, and then I'll figure the wealth part out later. And my rentals weren't doing that. So it kind of crushed my spirit where I'm like, kind of tucked my tail between my legs, like, let me go back to doing what I'm doing. And that first flip was really hard for me.
So what did it take to go from that first flip? So you got the rentals, but they're not quite panning out. They're not painting the dream that you had. You do the flip though, and may have been exciting at first, but you realize, hey, this thing's different. Lose money on it. How did you go from that to then doing your next deal? But even more importantly, hustling, going from that hustling mindset to building a real business that does actually put money in your pocket.
Yeah. I had to grow up. And what I mean by that is so yeah, I had these rentals and I was like looking at, my balance sheet or my net worth. I'm like, that's great. This is on track to do really, really well in time. But I learned very quickly that the cash that the rentals were generating, they needed to go right back into that business. Okay. Cause I pulled money out the first year. I'm like, yeah, this is badass. I'm living this lifestyle dream like I was taught. And I was like, oh crap, there's this AC that went out or this tenant moved out. I wasn't expecting this make ready. So I said, okay, these rentals, like that is a long-term wealth building strategy. This money that's coming in, just put it back in there. Like don't touch it. So I'm like, okay, I got that lesson. But how am I going to pay my bills? Because now I had a home.
It's hard to
Yeah,
eat on
yeah,
$200 a month, even if you didn't have the repairs.
it was hard. And my wife's like popping out kids, and then you want to go to private, send them to private school and do the stuff. Like I need to make real money. So to me, I came to a point where, oh crap, I need to figure some things out or I have to go back and get a job. And when I was working my job, I was miserable, man. And so that first flip, I didn't treat it like a business. Like literally, I'm going over there knocking down walls with my contractors. We're horsing around. I saw pictures to this day. We're farting around over there. I won't even tell you about some things. We're just like having fun. I'm changing the scope of work. Man, yeah, I changed my mind. Let's paint it this color. We had already bought the paint. No, what about this? What about this? I'm acting like I'm in one of these TV shows, right? And there's no camera crew there. There is not. And so what happened was after I lost money on that, and I was like, oh crap, I need to actually make some real money in my bank account or I'm gonna have some problems pretty soon. So this was 3-4 months where I didn't do another deal, meaning a flip deal. I still bought some rentals that had kind of been my comfort zone. And there was nothing wrong with that. I could have built a very large rental portfolio. My heart wasn't there. My energy wasn't there. And that's a real big thing. It's like following your energy and your heart. I'm like, I wanted to flip houses, but I was scared. So I'm like, man, if this goes wrong again, if I lose money again, like what's going to happen? And so in my heart of hearts, I knew what I wanted to do, but I also knew that there was this fear there. So whenever we have fear, so when we have fear, a fear usually comes down to a lack of experience or just a lack of knowledge and information. So I literally went back and like I journaled about like everything that I did that I could have done differently. And like from analyzing the deal to borrowing money to the rehab game plan, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, the timing of the year, all that kind of stuff. And that ultimately became what the fundamentals are based on that I teach. And I'm like, okay, so we need to learn how to find better deals, analyze deals better. We need to borrow money at a lower capital rate. That's what I did on the second one. First time I flipped a house with private money with no points and things like that. Saved a lot of money. So I took all these things I learned from it and I applied them to the next flip deal. So what happened with that was I used to live in these networking groups in the beginning, and I'm not really a networker, but I just lived there because I knew that this is where deals were at, this is where money was at. So I just lived in these types of rooms. And the guy who I'd done some deals with, a wholesaler, said, "Hey man, we're locking this one up. Would you be interested?" And it was that property right there. And that property, if you guys who are local here know where Greatwood is at, and Greatwood is a really really nice subdivision. And however, in 2009, this was still not a good flip market at all whatsoever. But I happen to know Greatwood very well because we lived in the apartments across the road from Greatwood, and we knew people over there, and they were doing really well. I'm like, Greatwood's a great neighborhood. And so he sent me this deal, and the ARV on this home was close to like $400,000 back then. That's about $1 million home these days,
Yeah.
close to it. And I was nervous as could be. And so I'm like, phew, I'm like, yeah, sure, I'll take a look. I'm not even gonna take a look at this home. And it got me, man. So I drove by there that night, late at night, just kind of drove by, took a look at it, went by the next morning. And I'm like, dude, I gotta do it. Looked at the numbers, obviously. So I called him up. I'm like, let's do it. And I was nervous as can be. And so what happened on that deal was it wasn't a big rehab or anything like that. But I started like, how can I make this deal successful? Went to raise private money. I had private money, no points, anything like that, much lower interest than a hard money loan. Nothing wrong with hard money. But if you got cheaper money, you get cheaper money. So I got cheaper money. And then I got super clear on my rehab game plan, which I wasn't on the first one. And this particular deal, it was pretty cosmetic. What happened was it was a divorce, and the husband had just remodeled the entire kitchen for the wife before they got a divorce. So he gutted the kitchen just in spite of her, right? Most everything else, that's not funny, Kevin. That's not funny. And it was a beautiful kitchen. And so it was a kitchen remodel and then like paint and carpet and everything else. So what I did, I had everything, the paint colors, all this kind of stuff. And I called a meeting with my contractors before who had been doing a lot of work with them. I said, look, here's what's going on. We're closing on this property next week. I've got the scope of work here. This property has to be done in 30 days and it's got to be high end quality. So here's the scope of work. If you want to take part in this job, I need you here 7 days a week. No excuses, no whining. And I'm going to push y'all. We're going to work long because my business is riding on this deal. And thankfully, I got all the guys buy-ins. They're like, yep, we're good. We're good. We're good. I'm like, good. Show up here noon on Friday when we close or whatever. So the day we closed, I had all the guys there lined up, clear orders. Like, we're not going to change this. We're not changing this. This is what we're doing. And they did it in 30 days. And I called my agent before, knew when it was coming up. I said, it's going to be, done this week. So she pre-listed it, had it listed, went live like on a Friday, and we had a full price offer later that day. She had already been talking to people. We had a full price offer later that day. It closed in exactly 30 days. I got HUD to HUD and cleared over a $60,000 net in 60 days. And when that happened, it changed my life. Okay, not because $60,000 changed my life, but kind of back then it did, because that was more than I made the entire year working my job at Ecolab, doing that job that I hated. So when that happened, I'm like, holy bleep. Like, it just like my mind went to all these places about what was possible, and I haven't looked back since. But it was a big thing for me to step into that place. And most people, a lot of times, they won't step into that fear, or to go wrong, then they won't step back again. And that's when you get to actually, that's when you get to leverage the learning lessons, because a lot of people will step into something, there's pain, it's hard, they go back out, and they don't realize that's how they leverage the pain when they go back in. But a lot of people won't do that. And I almost didn't, to be honest, like almost didn't.
Yeah, learning the lesson. So, what mindset shifts did you have to make to break through that barrier, break through that pain, to do that again, and and then continue forward, even past this deal?
Well, pain is really one of the greatest teachers and oftentimes the blessings that we have. And so through that first flip deal, honestly, like had it all gone well, I probably would have learned that lesson on my second one that I didn't have learned on the first one.
You're gonna learn it either way.
You're gonna learn it either way. You're gonna learn it either way. So, there's sophomore slump a lot of times is a real thing. Like I've seen that to be true a lot of times. Someone does something great the first time. No, you got lucky. You probably got lucky. And then it's like the second one goes so bad. It's like, yeah, because you got a little bit lazy, you got a little bit lax, and the business world taught you some lessons. So for me, I think the biggest breakthrough was that realization, like, no, like the business world is not forgiving. Like you need to come in here and these deals, you need to treat like a business, or you'll be back like where you were, which like to me was like the road to hell. Like it was not good, and I didn't want to stay stuck there. So I think leveraging the pain that I went through and that fear of going back, and I had started having man, I just started having some, dreams and some visions for myself and my life that I had never had before. Right. I just kind of like, well, my parents are middle class. They kind of scrape by, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I was kind of like, maybe I'll just be like that. Maybe that's what I'm supposed to be. And then I started, like I said, reading some things, put myself into some different rooms. I'm like, no, I think I can do more. So I just explore what that would look like. And part of having more, guys, is like stepping out of comfort zones, and you have to keep doing it too. Like it's this process never ends. Like I just didn't reach this certain plateau and like you can just like, oh, this is success. It's nice and peaceful. No, there's always some other obstacle or challenge that's coming up. You just got to be willing to take it on.
Yeah, your reward for leveling up in life and business is a new set of problems. So it's like and Mario, you get past level 1 and then now you got level 2 Mario, and the boss, that one, he's a little bit harder. And then go to level 3, and some folks get stuck on, let's say, level 3, and then just keep playing that over and over and over again, not learning the lessons that you learn to keep moving and keep leveling up. But so for you, fear was a big motivator. You didn't want to go back. You saw what could be, and you had some bigger dreams. And then you've gone to flip quite a few homes since then. What's made the biggest difference in helping you do all that and grow without just burning yourself out, running yourself into the ground, doing everything yourself? Because flipping one house, there's a lot that goes on. You start adding 2 or 3 at a time or more, it stacks up quick.
Yeah, yeah, it does. The question is, what has kept me from burning out?
Yeah. So, for example, say you're flipping, one house a month, just one house a month. So you did that in 30 days. Well, the problem is during month 1, you've got one house. That's the only thing you're focusing on. But month 2, you're focusing on the new flip and you're focusing on selling the second flip. Month 3, you're focusing on the new flip, selling the second flip, maybe still trying to close on the third flip. And then now they start stacking. And then on top of that, you got marketing and you got phone calls, and then you got, things fall out and all the things. So, how were you able to grow without burning yourself out?
Well, I've not grown without burning myself out. I've burned myself out a lot. But through that burnout, like I've kept going, like
you learn the
pick up
lessons.
the ashes, okay, that's kind of messy. Don't want to do that again. Meaning what I experienced, how can we do it better? So one, it's just being able to be persistent, even going through times where this isn't great. It's not what I wanted. I'm short staffed. I had to let somebody go, and like learning through, going through those valleys and keeping your eye on the next peak. You get to the peak and it's like, oh, okay, I'm glad I went through that because now I'm here. And then you get to that next peak and you're like, okay, this is cool. This is great. Been here, done this. Now I want to go there. So the only way that you can go there, you got to go back down, and you got to learn something. You got to grow. You got to go through pain. Probably may have to burn out a little bit to get to the next peak. It's pit to peak, pit to peak, pit to peak. And your peaks should be getting higher and higher. But through that, okay, so didn't have business background. So I guess you just kind of learn business acumen along the way, you know. In the beginning, I'll tell you, like going back, it is really hard, Chris. Like when you start scaling up, even if you're doing like 10 deals at a time, it's hard to a certain extent because you look at how success most successful businesses are run. There's not just like this, you know, individual owner who's doing all this stuff with, you know, strings and all that, puppets. No, it's not. Like there's usually like a CEO and a COO. Like you have like a visionary with traction, right? And you have an integrator, you have an administrator, but you've got a visionary. So the problem with a lot of people with like running the real estate business is they're the leadership team and they're integrating it and doing marketing and all this stuff. And that's why they always have a hard time scaling. So in the beginning, I would say the two things that I did that helped me kind of overcome, you know, what limits people from getting success or traction was in the beginning, I started like, man, I knew I just couldn't do anything. So I was pretty good about putting blinders on. Like, example, in the beginning, I knew I was working a full-time job, wife and kids. I wasn't going to have time to do everything in my business. So I didn't even think about doing any marketing. I'm like, I'm not going to market for deals. I don't have time for that. And also, I didn't even want to do that. It was my least desirable part of the whole business. And I was fortunate you could get deals from wholesalers back then, like we really can't these days. And it's hard at least. And so I was like, I'm just going to do that. I'm going to focus on how to get money from my deals. So I just put most of my focus there. And then when I started doing deals, getting traction, the next part was like, okay, this construction stuff, it was fun for me in the beginning. I'm like, this is no longer fun. So I started paying a guy per job to kind of quote unquote manage the job, go check on it a few days a week, give me an update. So I only have to go by once a week. So I started doing that. And then I had about 25 rentals where I was still working. Well, I quit my job at about my 23rd rental, but I still had a job up to that point, wife, kids, and now we're managing the rehabs. And I was leasing and managing these 20 something properties all at the same time. So I'm like, this isn't sustainable. This is not sustainable. And I realized I didn't like all these tenants have my phone number. I call times of the day for who knows what. So
That wasn't fun for you?
appreciate them, but you know, and so at a certain point, I'm like, all right, I worked my butt off too, and that was a part like you don't want to do that for forever, but I'm like, when I got into real estate, I remember going and being in some of these rooms and hearing some of these people talk, and I'm like, okay, there's some really smart people here. I barely got out of high school. I'm not gonna lie. Like, I'm not gonna outsmart a lot of these people in this room. And so I just kind of made up my mind, like just gonna have to outwork people that can outsmart me because they may be outsmart me, but I'm gonna make sure they can't outwork me, which is not sustainable mindset. But that was my mindset. And so I was just willing to like stay up all night or sleep 2 or 3 hours and just grind and do all these jobs until I wasn't. So there would come a point where I would have a burnout or I would just have like, this is it. I'm not going to do this anymore. So then my second hire was an admin basically to manage all my properties. And so when those needs came up, they weren't proactive. Like, you know, I didn't have like this board, like I was going to build this big business. It was just like, here's a need. This makes sense. I would hustle and grind to build up the inventory or the revenue to support it, and then I would do it. But before then, I would just do the job. So which helped me be a better trainer for it and all that kind of stuff. But then as I progressed in business, you know, I began hiring coaches. How do I really build a team? How do I get an assistant? How do I train people and do things like that? So I learned along the way, and then I paid people to teach me how to do it more efficiently.
Yeah, so you leverage your skill, which was you're just going to outwork them. But although, as you said, there may have been some other folks smarter, so you focused on the work leverage that gave you the competitive edge from street smart, knowing how to do it, which of course makes you a better manager because you know how to train, you know what to expect, you know what the outcome looks like.
Yeah, and it is a really good as a business owner, that is a really good model to have to a certain extent. Where do the job yourself to know it really well, because I've since then had to hire people that I wasn't that knowledgeable about the job. I didn't either have that skill set or I didn't even have the desire to learn it, so I knew very little about it. So I was not a very good manager, and I wasn't able to help train or even detect problems the way I'd like to. And still that way with certain things, which I guess is good in parts of the business when it comes to, like, technical stuff, web development stuff, even like the deep financial stuff. I don't care about. Um, but it makes it hard to manage it sometimes, or say, hey, is this person doing a good job or not?
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously, you don't have to know and do everything, but there's definitely going to be a deficiency you're going to have in hiring that out if you don't have that skill, and you may have to go through a few folks and go through that repetition and just part of business. So, if you were starting over today, no money, no credit, no network, but you got the knowledge. So for this, what would you be doing for the next 90 days?
Yeah, so it's real easy. It's real easy. So deals and dollars, deals and dollars, deals and dollars. I just tell my students this all the time. Deals and dollars. There's two things if you want to be a real estate entrepreneur, you should be doing every single day is looking for deals and looking for dollars. So if I was, I don't know what that show is. I didn't watch it, but they dropped Grant Cardone, these guys off in these cities, and they got
Undercover billionaire?
yeah, that one. Same thing. I would be in these rooms like every day. There's groups going on. Either there's meetup groups, there's real estate networking. That's not as many as there used to be, but most nights of the week, there's stuff going on during the day. I would be in the rooms and I would be building a network mainly for deals and building my team. Okay. While at the same time focusing on money. Okay. Because a lot of people spend their time focusing on deals, and then when the deal comes, they don't have the money. And now they put their in position, like a lot of wholesalers have done this, where they can find deals and they make a quick buck, but they can't build real wealth or a real business. And if you've got dollars, you can get dollars will attract deals. Okay. And dollars are also attracting good deals. So I would be focused on building a team of people to bring me deals, either wholesale agents bringing deals, or I'll JV with people. And I would focus on finding the money, because that's also the opportunity, is because most people don't spend a lot of time on the money side. They focus on the deal side. And that's, like, you've heard me ask people for at events. I'm like, how many investors here have a marketing plan to buy houses? Everybody's hand goes up. How many people have a plan to raise money? Hands go down. That's the opportunity.
Yeah. So how many real estate agents we have in the room? You real estate agents? So that's where I think some of the best real estate agent, because being a real estate agent, if you want to be a good one, you got to be a good networker. And some of the best ones, they are just phenomenal networkers. But some of the most successful real estate agents are investor agents. They understand the investing game, and they are a connector of dots. And we've got a guy on the team, and just, I mean, he was doing like $50 million in transactions, or 30 million, I don't know, 30 million, 50 million, whatever, in his first year, and consecutively every year after that. But what's even more amazing, at least to me, was he's getting in on these mobile home park deals, apartment deals. He's doing these, on the beach Airbnbs, and building a huge portfolio. He's doing it right now because he was a connector. And so it sounds like be a connector, right?
That's it. That's it.
So what advice, you may have just answered this. So what advice do you have for someone who they feel like they've just tried everything, but nothing seems to stick?
Yeah. Yeah. I I feel you. I go through that sometimes with business things and projects that we're doing now. I was talking to some people, right before the thing, and I've got some mobile home parks and RV parks, and that was a new thing for me. And there were times where I was questioning myself because things weren't going as planned. I had all these problems. We had a call. What's the night? Tuesday, Wednesday, Monday night. We had a call, and I was sharing this one particular, the first park I bought. And I've had, dude, I can't even make all this stuff up. The problems I've had with the well water system, with the septic, with a lawsuit, with this thing, dot, 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 dot. And if I had known all that going in, if I had known, hey, Brant, you're going to deal with all this stuff in the next 5 years and low occupancy, literally after we bought the park, uh, less than a mile down the road, and this is a one-way kind of road into our park, and it's dead ends. They broke ground to develop a brand new RV park right by ours 6 months later. If I had this big, long list of stuff, hey, you can do this deal, but you're going to have to go through all this stuff. I'd be like, no way. There's no way I would do that. And I went through hard times and hard challenges, but through it, like really realized in the last year and a half, realized, well, we're not an RV park. We're affordable housing community. So we've been bringing in tiny homes, cabins, and then we're also right off of a major interstate. And where it's at, it's still very rural. It's a major thoroughfare. There's not Airbnbs over there. So we put out a couple of Airbnbs and they stay rent all the time. I'm like, oh crap. So we've kind of hit an income peak right now where I always wanted us to be, and now we're in close proximity to exceeding that, like very, very close. And I'm like, oh man, like this just feels good. Like it just feels good. But it was a much different path than I thought it was going to be. Like much different path. So for those of you who are struggling, man, like this isn't working, like typically it is good to begin with the end in mind, right? With things. So I like to go back to the vision. Like what is your vision? Because a lot of times when people get to a place where they're stagnant, they're plateauing, maybe you hit a certain level of success, you're not growing, or you're just not doing the things you know you need to do. You're not doing it. You're not doing it. You're probably good at like coming up with excuses. Well, I've got this and this and this and blah, 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 blah. And nope, like your bank account doesn't care about that. It's like, it's only going to care like what you're showing up and doing. So when someone's struggling, if you go back to like your vision, you need to have, I've done this a couple times. You have to have this vision that excites you and motivates you to take action. There's a conversation you had a while back on something we're collaborating on, and you're like, man, that's going to be tough. And blah, blah. I'm like, you're killing my thunder, man. Like, I know, but let's focus on this vision. Let's generate this excitement so we can go out and all this shit's going to happen. I already know it. But if we don't have that excitement to propel us, like it's not going to happen. So I would go back to your vision. Like, is this really exciting you? Is this really, really, really something that compels you to take this action? Because if it's not, you need to go and find something that is going to inspire you. Go out and take action, because if you're building a business, it is going to be hard. There's going to be challenges and obstacles. The good news is every single one of them are surmountable. Like nothing that is going to be insurmountable, but you got to have that excitement and that juice to get you going in the morning, or you're not going to do it. So I would go back there, and then, so I would go back to that vision. I'll go back to that vision, but you can't just be like this dreamer. I meet those folks all the time too. You can't just be a dreamer. Like, so I'm a dreamer, but you have to combine, you got to have that dream, okay, with also the drive to put in the work, but also like the right model, right? Like fundamentals to do that. And whenever you do it, that's how that can start to happen. And I've seen that happen with people I've done deals with students who go do their own deal and they're coming back and like, oh yeah, it works. I mean, yeah, I know. I got an email a while back, and this one person went through a course, and I didn't hear from them. Didn't hear from them for months and months and months. And they emailed me like, I don't know, it's an insurance question or something like that, like a general question. And then at the bottom of their email, they said, oh, by the way, finished your course. We flipped the house and made like 70 grand. Thanks a lot. It worked well. I'm like, oh yeah. Oh, by the way, it doesn't work all the time, but you got to have a dream. Okay. Your vision, you have to have a drive. You guys got to work. Like you got to put in some work. Like, and a lot of times it's a lot of work. And then combine that with a model or system or fundamentals that have actually been proven to work before. Besides like going out and charting a path of your own is typically not going to work. Or you're going to be so dead, doggone, beat up and bruised at the end, you're not going to want to do it again. I've done that a couple times.
A couple thoughts came to mind there on the dream and vision. I heard this a while back, and that's if you look forward to Fridays disproportionately more than Mondays, you're doing something wrong. Like you're chasing the wrong thing. Really, really think about that. And obviously, you got to put in the work. There's 100,000% chance you will get beat up and bruised at some point in the line along the journey. And if you stay in it long enough, a lot of parts along the journey, persevere. But in certain market cycles, like the fundamentals always work, but certain market cycles require a little bit more creativity. And in my opinion, we're in one of those. So you mentioned flipping like 2009. It was a little bit easier to get deals, easier to get some, private, hard money. It was harder to sell deals. It was a lot harder to sell stuff back then. Now we're kind of in a weird time. It's starting to get a little easier than it was yesterday to get deals, but still it's tough to sell. So that's where creativity comes in mind. So follow the fundamentals, buy deep, have your margins, like be stingy on your margins, but look for creative ways. On the coaching call this morning, one of the guys, we were talking about this flip. He's been having trouble flipping, and I've been talking about other ways you can actually sell the house. And he was telling me this morning he thinks he's locked up an owner's finance buyer. He's going to do a wrap, and so we were kind of working through like what that looks like. So finding creative ways to get your win.
Yeah, you have to if you want to create long-term wealth. If you want to create long-term wealth, you have to stay in the game. Okay. I maybe you can do it a quicker way. If so, show me how. But for most people who create, sizable wealth, it's like it's a long-term plan. So the only way that you're going to execute a long-term vision, a long-term plan is build a sustainable business model, but also being able to know like when certain things work in certain cycles, you got to be able to identify those and execute them, knowing that the cycles are going to change. Like everything is cyclical. So a flipping market will come back around at some point in time. But there's different opportunities. Like right now, like there are more buying opportunities today than there were 6 months or a year ago, by far. There's creative financing strategies that we weren't really privy to back in the day, with subject to and interest rates being out there at 3%, like you did your workshop on, right? So there's opportunities there. Some of you guys are like, well, I don't have any money to, lock up the deal or do the deal. Bring a partner in. There's private lenders that may have 10, 25, 50, $100,000 that will partner with you or more. And you create partnerships. That's what I did in 2008. That's how I bought all my rentals. They were in partnerships. I split 50-50. And I did that for a year. Like, how can I keep buying houses? Because I couldn't get any more financing after I had 10 deals I did my first year. So there's opportunities like that. So you do have to have some solid fundamentals, have a business plan, and inject some creativity here or there that's going to keep you in the game and move you to where you need to go.
Love it, love it. These questions we asked everyone, same 4 questions. I know you've answered them before. Time and circumstance may be a little bit different now, but if you could give advice to your 20-year-old self, what would that be?
Well, so I think that now that I'm my 50-year-old self, we're talking about sustainability. I think it would be that, like, a big problem I think also that people have is people have this such short-sightedness. Well, things are tough right now. Oh, this was so hard, or my last deal went bad. And like it's not always going to be that way. And whenever we can take our sight off of like the short-term difficulty or challenge, and if you can keep focused on that 5, 10, even 20-year plan, if you can stay focused on that, when you take those hits or those little challenges come up, rather than getting so focused on that and stressed out about that and like, oh, this isn't going to work because this thing happened. No, like take that long-term view. And I would take more of a long-term view. And because I think sometimes I would get in cash crunches and trying to figure this out and I get real stressed out. I'm like, dude, all this is going to work out in time. And there's so many times or challenges I've been through things where if I had just been a little more patient, just a little more trusting, it was all going to work out. So I would be working, I would be thinking more and giving myself that vision, like, dude, like relax a little bit, enjoy the ride, keep focused on that long-term vision. Just make sure you're taking little bitty steps every single day. Because I would go extreme, think I'm gonna do all this stuff really quick. And some things you can, but sometimes that creates more problems than it's worth, rather than just like one step at a time.
What book or books have greatly influenced your life?
Man, the biggest books that have affected my life, like when I'm asked that question, it goes back to the beginning. That's what impacted me the most. And since then there's been other books. But in the beginning, like for me, like Rich Dad Poor Dad, everybody's read that. And it's not like it's the greatest real estate book ever or anything like that. But it was that paradigm shift where, okay, I didn't know this even existed. So if you haven't read that, read that. That was huge for me. But I didn't realize like I'm a really big just like mindset guy. Like I think that's the most important part and piece of this game, a business, of just having that grit and that determination. Like I see it with you, man. Like you're just like steady, like grinding, 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 grinding. And so when I read, didn't even read it. The first thing I did was like I got this Tony Robbins CD set, and I got this thing. I was like on clearance or something at Barnes and Nobles, and I put this thing in the DVD. I'm going, or not DVD, CD. Driving to work, I'm like, who's this freaking nut? Look, I never heard anything like this, and I'm like, this dude's a freaking nut. And I started listening. I'm like, all right, that makes a little sense. That makes a little sense. Later that week, I'm in my car. I'm yelling and writing out vision boards and all that kind of stuff. So for me, it wasn't just business books. And I would strongly encourage you guys, like, don't do that. Cause I went on that path too, where I'm like, just going to make a bunch of money and I'm going to, get rich and that's going to solve problems. No, then you're one dimensional douche. That's basically what I was becoming. So you need to have some pillars, right? Your faith, family, fitness, and finances. But for me, incorporating that kind of mindset stuff. So I've always been, like Tony Robbins kind of stuff. I've read Stephen Covey in the beginning. Like that was very impactful for me. So I wanted, when I got exposed to those things, I'm like, I don't want to just be making money. I want to create, a life and a business I'll be proud of that can create a legacy. So incorporating the mindset stuff with business to me has been huge.
In the last 5 years, what new belief, behavior, or habit has most improved your life?
Well, we're not going to live. Man, look at this cup. We're not going to live for forever. And so,
Is the force with you?
yeah, I read some magic books and I've got this it's still going. Um, so, you talked about burnout and stuff like that. So I got real involved in, some physical fitness and things like that, and just going extreme in business. So I think the last 5 years, gravity to a certain extent has helped humble me at times, where I started having some physical challenges in my health a few years ago. And so I'm like, I can't do all the things that I used to do. So how can I do things differently and still create similar results? So it got me more focused on sustainability, not only in business but in health. And so just changing some ways that I'm doing things that aren't gonna burn me out physically in other areas of life.
How can people reach out to you?
BrantPhillips.com is the easiest way. And you may have some insight into that question too, with some things we're going to talk about that we're doing together.
Yeah.
But BrantPhillips.com is the easiest way.
Awesome. We'll take a couple questions and then got some exciting news to share. Who's got a question?
What are your 3 keys to raising money?
So money is attracted to good deals and trustworthy people. So bring a good deal to the table. Okay. Don't be trying to sell a lender on a bad deal. So good deals, trustworthy people, always operate in honesty, integrity, transparency, no matter what. And number 3, over deliver. whatever you say you're going to do, you're going to communicate, you're going to pay on time, you pay early, you over communicate, like over deliver. So if you'll just do that, good deals, always operating in integrity, and then just over deliver, like you will not have a shortage of money.
All right, who's next?
What is like your most favorite deal you've done? I know you do some and they're kind of like humdrum, and then there's some that you really have a lot of drama with. And then there's some that are just kind of like a fall down. Could you give us like a little example of one of your favorite deals?
Yeah, I can. It's not necessarily just the ones that make the most money. Those are fun. Um, uh, these days more so like I wouldn't say they're fun, so to speak. Like back in the day, like it used to like be a lot of fun. The funnest deals I get now are like students deals. They go out and do a deal. I'm like, that's more fun for me. Like I get all excited with that than my own deals. I will tell you though, like with most things in life, once you do it once, kind of that fun wears off. So I would say it's whatever like a new arena that I step into, it's a new level of excitement. There's a new learning curve there. And that's not always fun, but when I do it successfully, that's what I would say. Like for example, when I flipped that second house, I made that money. That was probably as fun flipping a house because everything. What are you gonna do after that? I remember there was a time that an agent brought me a mobile home on land, and this was an investor, and she was like, "We don't do mobile homes." Kind of like turned her nose up at it, and I've been dabbling with mobile homes, and I'm like, I never flipped a mobile home like that. I'm like, I'll take a look at it. We flipped that one and made 6 figures on it net. So that was kind of fun. And I'm like, I think we're going to flip some mobile homes, and we still do that to this day. When I did our first owner finance note, I was a little bit nervous about it, and then it worked out good. And I still have this guy in the home 12 years later. You know, the first RV park or the first mobile home park. When we started doing land deals, bought a park out of the state. I was nervous. So I think it's, you know, like a kid waking up on Christmas. There's a new thing. Like we were all once kids, right? And so that's like the thing. Like with business, like people get so caught up in their fear and wanting to hold on to certainty and not take risk. So to me, like it's whatever the next thing is. That's what's fun, because once you do it once or twice, okay, now it's just business. We've been there, done that. But it's the next thing where it gets the juices flowing.
So kind of step beyond your comfort zone
Mm-hmm.
and try different things is what you're saying.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And then when you do that, it's not like I've had a couple things like go sideways that didn't work out. But it's kind of like, you know, I don't want to be the guy dying with a bunch of regrets, right? And we all know the 5 things, like the 5 regrets of the dying, and it's never like, oh, I wish I had just played it even more safe and no, they never. I wish I'd have done the things that I didn't do. So just doing those things, man, just doing those things.
So I know you focus a lot on mobile home parks, but if you were just focusing on single family, what would be your preferred exit option right now with a market the way that it is?
Well, so it depends, like, or it depends on what the goal is, right? Are we looking for long-term wealth? Are we looking for cash flow? Or are we looking to pay the bills? Okay. And right now it's very complicated. It's very tricky because a lot of deals, they're not going to do any of those. Okay. So something that came up, so it's hard to answer the questions. It depends, because properties that would cash flow a few years ago, because taxes, insurance, interest rates, they don't cash flow. They don't cash flow. So you either have to, one, like to me, the strategy of like negative cash flow that's not sustainable. So either you got to bring in a bunch of like raise capital. Okay. You got to raise capital, bring in a bunch of partners, create some type of fund, and just raise a bunch of cash, which is really diminishing the return. So that's not really that great. 6 to 9 months ago, I would have told you owner financing. We're like really heavy with selling with owner financing because of things that are going on in the social world. it's not such a great strategy as it used to be. So it's getting much more difficult. Okay. So I'll just tell you what I'm mainly focusing on. Like we're still flipping houses at a lower volume that we did before, but we're also like incredibly important. If you're gonna flip houses in this market, and this should be non-negotiable, is you need to have multiple exit strategies. Something that you could flip retail, owner finance, theoretically rent and at least break even, or you go Airbnb. So what's transpired for me, like fortunate having the mobile home parks and the RV parks. Yeah, I've been focusing more on there. And really, like our RV park, we've been converting it to more small home community, affordable housing with cabins and tiny homes and things like that. Because when you really drill down on return on investment, like your home in Galveston, like when you really took, we were doing a little study the other night with some of my students. It was like, what's an ideal rental property? 3,000 square foot home? No, like, then Champion, no, no, no. What's most ideal? I used to say like, 1,200 square feet, 3 bedroom, 2 bath, 2 car garage. That's, $100,000. Those are hard to find. I was like, you can't find those houses anymore. I'm like, oh, wait. Yeah, you can. Cause we bought 3 last month and they're called tiny homes or cabins that we're buying for, $5,000 to $20,000 or renting for $700 to $1,000 a month. So that's what I'm actually doing in practice, but we're still flipping homes as well. But we're real cautious, like medium price housing and below is still my role. Is if you want an opportunity to make that quick cash, you got to stay under that price point for the most part. Or if you're going north of that, you're going $500,000-$600,000 houses. I know some guys are doing that. Good luck. Just safeguard yourself because it's a lot of risk there, and I'm low risk, high reward. If it's this game, I don't play because I've done that and it's gone backwards for me and it was painful.
I 100% agree there. Protecting, like, be really stingy on your margins. And if that means you don't do a deal for 6-9 months, then you don't do a deal for 6 to 9 months. Like if you followed Warren Buffett, he's happy doing nothing for a full year if that means not doing a bad deal or a deal that doesn't make sense. And in an environment where it's just it potentially could be harder to sell, and I say potentially because I've looked at comps in submarkets. They're still 10 days in the market, 15 days in the market. There's someone here I was talking to tonight where a house across the street, or actually not a house, a piece of land, like 6 acres, that sold in like 10 days. Like cash transaction. So know your market, but definitely multiple exit strategies that mitigate your risk. And not doing a deal is better than doing a bad one that's going to cost you a lot of money.
Hi, good evening. Yes, I agree with that. That being able to walk away from a not so good deal is a skill that we should all have. So, my question is: last Saturday, I signed a contract with a wholesaler. It's my second deal, so I'm kind of familiar with the process, but not this one. It's always something to learn. So when I signed the contract, I did not know. I only found out today that it will be a double closing. Had I not asked, I would have not known. So the closing is scheduled on Monday. And then had I not asked, I would have also have not known that they are not allowing me to enter and see the property again, to send the property inspector, to send the appraiser and the inspector. But I have to really, really talk to the wholesaler, the hard money lender, and the wholesaler. Yeah. And so now the new information that's kind of disappointing is now they told me I have to pay 8,000 because it's gonna be double closing. I won the contract because I offered 13,200 more. There are other investors at that time. So I ran the numbers. Looks like I'm still gonna cash flow, but there's a tenant on it. So that's also another issue. I don't know if they said they're in the process of evicting and the tenant already received the eviction paper, but I still don't know. So with this in mind, I don't know, is there any other option? I already paid the 7,500 non-refundable earnest money. And what do you think of a single closing or walking away? I run the numbers. I will still cash flow, But it's just surprising me about this double closing, not being able to see it unless I really, really, really push. Thank you.
Well, there's a few layers of that onion to peel back. Double closing isn't necessarily bad. We can just put the wholesaler on blast and go after them on social media and figure out who it is. And I'm just kidding. But we can talk later. But sometimes, like if a wholesaler is doing a double closing, sometimes they're a little bit more reputable and professional. To be honest with you, but at the same time, as they're not wanting to show their cards. So live and learn. Doesn't seem like the end of the world now, but there's some things that are concerning to me. Is there's a tenant there and it's in place, and there's eviction going on. Are they not going to get the eviction and make sure the tenant's out before closing?
It is not stated in the contract.
Yeah.
So the contract that I signed from the wholesaler, it is not stated clearly there that the tenants will be out on
Mhm.
closing. So but the wholesaler has verbal promises, reassurance, whatever that is, that they will make sure that the tenant's out. But I'm not counting on that because that's not in writing.
Mm-mm.
Of course they do.
Yes. Yeah. So you want to work on that. I don't think like you need to get a real estate attorney or anything right now, but I would be very concerned about that. We bought a property. There was a resident in. It took 3 years to get possession of this property. 3 years to get possession of this property after we close it. It's a big, long horror story. Anyways, so I'll be very cautious with that. I would not close with that tenant in there in that situation because you don't know what's going on. Okay. So in terms of you viewing the property, I don't know. Like I've never probably been in a situation like that, but there's got to be that you need to view the property. You've only seen it once, just that one time. Okay. But unfortunately, that it sounds like that's the contract you signed.
Yes.
It's non-refundable earnest money. It's probably written in that contract.
It's written that it's non-refundable. Yes.
It's written like that they're not going to give you any showings.
It's written that the one on the section it says unless there is a licensee agent, then I can. But it does not specifically state there that it's only one-time visit. So there's still some way.
Yeah. So in today's day and world, what I would do, to be quite honest with you, like what I would do is get that contract. I run through Chat GPT and say, how can I politely and professionally, yet threateningly, demand these things out of this situation? One, I need to view the property prior to closing. Number two, the tenant needs to get out, or we're going to have to talk to some legal counsel about to safeguard your position.
Oh yes, the update is I forgot to say on Friday they finally, because hard money will not really close the sale without the appraiser seeing the property and
There's
the
your
inspector.
there's your leverage.
Yes,
Right there.
so we really made it a point, and I love that
Yeah.
we stick to that. And I told them if the seller really wants to sell it, she should cooperate. So she did. So on Friday we're seeing, but they're kind of like, oh, but your inspector cannot stay there for 3 hours or so. It should be quick.
Yeah. Take your time. But the for me that the equal or bigger issue is that tenant situation. You really got to find out what's going there.
Yeah,
you don't want to inherit that.
Yeah, I agree on the tenant because we had we bought this property. The one and only I like using OPM, but the one in property that I did use cash because it was only like 20 grand. I was like, we'll just use cash in this thing. It was a junker, and I already had a wholesale buyer. I was gonna do kind of like a double close. So I was gonna close on it. I already had the end buyer, and a couple days before closing, I had our project manager, Jamie's dad, swing by. Just I don't know. There was some lumber there. That was it. We were going to use that at a different project, right? So anyway, he swung by, and this house, if you walked it, it looked like no one would ever live here, ever. It was a complete junk. It was in the northeast part of Houston. When you walked in, there's like visible holes. So it was on block. There's visible holes in the flooring. You could see straight through to the ground. The pipe into the bathtub came straight out of the subfloor, and like you would see in like an 1880s house, just straight out of the floor. And then they had a faucet on it, and then they had a standalone tub. Like that was the bathtub. And nothing about this house was habitable. A couple days before closing, project manager goes by. And the new occupants of this home were like, "What are you doing? We own this house." And very sternly said he had to leave. Call the seller. Seller's a nice lady going through nursing school. Like, ah, sorry. Those are my brothers. They don't own the home. Uh, won't be hard to get them to leave. They don't own the home. Like, I'm sorry. So I was like, okay, but you own the home. Yes. Okay. Title checked it. Everything checked out. Closed. Go to evict them so we can because now the wholesale buyer, they don't want to close. Smartly so on their end until they're out. So go file eviction. They show up. Never good when they show up. They show up with proper documentation showing that they own the home. So I'm like, well, that's not good. We get the documentation and send it over to title. Title does more work. Now they catch there's a forgery. The lady I spoke with teamed up with her mother, and they had some other relative forge the deed to transfer ownership from the two brothers all over to her. Technically, I only bought a third, but that was because of forgery. Another case, it was also a rental where there was another family member, and they the title was they were very suspect because they were speaking Spanish at closing and they were just kind of whispering in the ear. No, it wasn't that. It was just whispering in the ear, coaching his son on what to sign. And then it turns out when we go to remodel the home, hey, they're there. They actually live there. And so what had happened was he had his son do some forgeries, sell the property when his ex-wife still owned half, and that took at least a year for us to get access. And guess who made hard money, private money loan payments for a year? Me.
Yeah, that was similar to mine. 3 years. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
all that, be cautious. If it's a written lease agreement, very well documented, and I can have verbal conversation with them, maybe I feel a little bit more comfortable about it. It's just live and learn. I'm not opposed to buying
You can
houses.
also request a contingency or a holdback on that you're going to withhold certain from the seller until that person is out. Because there's things you can do. You just need to safeguard yourself.